South Memphis, 1976. Riverside Projects, the kind of place where blues was born from pain and barbecue smoke couldn't mask the smell of poverty. This is where Craig Petties entered the world on December 11th. His mama, Eva Jean, was pulling $15,000 a year as a foster parent. His father, ghost, just another statistic in a neighborhood full of them. But here's what nobody saw coming. This kid from the projects would become the first Black American to sit at the Mexican cartel's table, not as a runner, not as a middleman, but as a partner, an equal. This is that story. They called him Lil C on the streets, short for his name, shorter for his height. By 14, he was already in the game, moving nickel bags in the late 80s when crack dominated and Memphis was just another dot on the map. Nobody was checking for Memphis as a major hub. That blindness would become his biggest advantage. First arrest came at 15, freshman year at Carver High, 1992. Most kids getting caught would have scared straight. Not Petties. He saw it as tuition, education, and how not to get caught next time. The streets were teaching him something school never could, how to turn invisibility into power. But the real education came in March 1995. Petties was 18, still small time, still hungry. That's when opportunity knocked in the strangest way. See, there was this dealer who got himself locked up. Problem was, his Chevy Lumina got impounded with $500,000 cash hidden in a secret compartment, $500,000 just sitting there, waiting. The locked up dealer reached out to Antonio Allen, Petties' cousin, needed someone to retrieve that package. But Allen had a problem. Man was too heavy to climb the impound lot fence, built like a linebacker when they needed a point guard. So Allen brought in his little cousin. Petties was small enough, smart enough, and hungry enough to pull it off. Picture this, 18-year-old kid scaling a fence in the dead of night, breaking into an impounded car to steal drug money that wasn't even his. Most would have just delivered the package, taken their cut, kept it moving. But Petties, he had different plans. He and Allen double-crossed the original owner, kept the whole $500,000. Petties walked away with $50,000 as his personal seed money. Some moves save you, some moves end it all. This one built an empire. By 1999, 4 years after the heist, Petties had flipped that $50,000 into something real. Bought himself a house in Hickory Hill, Memphis suburbs, not the projects. $185,000 cash, paid off quick. Not flashy, not stupid money, just enough to look legitimate. Smart. While other dealers were buying chains and cars that screamed, "Arrest me," Petties was building infrastructure. He studied the game like others studied textbooks. Cell-based organization, borrowed from terrorist networks and Fortune 500 companies alike. Encrypted phones before your favorite rapper knew what encryption meant. Stash houses spread across state lines like a franchise operation. This wasn't street corner hustling anymore. This was corporate America with cocaine instead of coffee. Between 1995 and 2001, Petties built something Memphis had never seen. Memphis sits perfect on the map. Straight shot to Atlanta, Houston, St. Louis, Nashville, every major southern city within a day's drive. While the feds were watching Miami and LA, Petties was turning Memphis into the Underground Railroad for cocaine. By 2001, word reached LaBarbie, Edgar Valdez Villarreal, one of the only American citizens to reach leadership in a Mexican cartel. LaBarbie was looking for solid connections stateside. Petties was looking for unlimited supply. What happened next would change the game forever. 2002, the meeting that changed everything went down in Mexico. Picture this, a black kid from Memphis sitting across from LaBarbie, one of the most powerful American-born cartel leaders in history. LaBarbie ran the Beltran-Leyva organization's U.S. operations. Petties ran Memphis and beyond. What they built together would become legendary. See, the Mexican cartels had a problem. They could move product to the border, but distribution in the American South was fragmented. Too many small-time dealers, no organization, no discipline. Petties had already solved that problem. 8 states under his control: Tennessee, Mississippi, Georgia, Texas, North Carolina, Arkansas, Missouri, Alabama. That's not a drug operation. That's an empire. The partnership was sealed. Craig Petties became the first documented Black American accepted at the highest levels of a major Mexican cartel. When Petties moved to Mexico, the cartel provided him with a driver, personal chef, maid, nanny for his kids, personal trainer, and armed guards. They set him up in Milenio 3rd, an upscale subdivision in Santiago de Querétaro. This was respect. This was unprecedented. Back in Memphis, the machine kept running. The Lewis brothers, Clinton and Martin, handled day-to-day operations. Clinton managed enforcement, making sure everyone stayed in line. Martin ran distribution, keeping product moving like clockwork. Clarence Brody coordinated logistics. Demetrius Fields managed the money. Each piece essential, each man deadly serious about their role. The numbers were staggering. Prosecutors would later say millions of dollars every week, not month, week. Single shipments ranged from 330 pounds to 1,100 pounds. But the crown jewel? One shipment, 5,500 pounds of marijuana. Street value, $50 million. One shipment. That's not drug dealing. That's nation-state level trafficking. Petties had turned the traditional model upside down. Usually, Mexican cartels looked at Black dealers as customers, maybe middle management at best, but Petties proved something different. He proved that organization beats muscle, that intelligence beats violence, that reliability beats everything. The cartels didn't care what color he was. They cared that he never missed a payment, never lost a shipment, never brought heat they couldn't handle. By 2002, at age 26, Petties controlled one of the largest drug operations ever seen in the American South. DEA would later call it one of the largest drug trafficking organizations ever prosecuted in West Tennessee. But that undersells it. This was bigger than Tennessee. This was regional dominance with international backing. But here's where the story turns dark. Power requires enforcement. Territory requires protection. And in the drug game, that means blood. The violence was strategic, never random. Marcus Turner got tortured for 3 days before they killed him. Why? He stole from the organization. Mario McNeil got shot in a restaurant. His crime? Threatening Petty's mother. You touch the money or the family, you don't get a second chance. That's the law, unwritten but understood. You want to understand Craig Petties? Understand this. By 2002, he'd ordered at least 6 murders, probably more. Federal prosecutors called him destroyer of lives for a reason. This wasn't some Robin Hood story. This was calculated violence to protect an empire built on poison. Let's start with the worst betrayal. Antonio Allen, his own cousin. Same cousin who brought him into the $500,000 heist that started everything. By 2002, Allen got caught up, facing serious time. The feds made him an offer, your freedom for your cousin's empire. Allen took the deal, started wearing wires, recording conversations, gathering evidence. Petty's response was swift and final. They killed Antonio Allen in 2002, his own blood, the man who gave him his first real opportunity. But in Petty's world, crossing the line meant death. Family or not, that's not just cold. That's a level of calculation that most killers can't reach. Murdering the cousin who made you rich because he threatened your freedom. Then Mario Stewart, cooperating witness, trying to cut a deal with the feds. They caught him in his garage while his kids were inside the house. The message was clear: cooperate with law enforcement, you die. Doesn't matter where, doesn't matter who's around. The violence wasn't just punishment, it was advertising. Every potential snitch in Memphis got the message. Marcus Turner's death showed another side of Petties' brutality. Turner made the fatal mistake of stealing from the organization. They held him for 3 days before the end. Why so long? Because Petties wanted everyone to know what happens when you steal from him. The torture wasn't just about Turner, it was about everyone who might think about crossing the organization. Mario McNeil thought he could threaten Petties' mother. Fatal miscalculation. Got shot in a Memphis restaurant, middle of the day, witnesses everywhere. The brazenness was the point. Touch my family and I'll kill you anywhere. Public attack to make a public point. The restaurant stayed closed for weeks. Customers traumatized, community terrorized. But here's what made Petties especially dangerous. The violence was strategic, not emotional. Every murder served a purpose. Kill a snitch, prevent more snitching. Kill a thief, prevent more theft. Kill someone who threatens family, prevent more threats. This wasn't hot-headed street violence. This was corporate downsizing with bullets. Federal documents detail more bodies they couldn't definitively pin on him. Associates who disappeared. Rivals who turned up dead. Potential witnesses who never made it to court. The official count was 6 murders, but investigators believed the real number was higher. Some bodies never found. Some murders never connected. The fear he created was suffocating. In Memphis neighborhoods, people knew not to even speak his name wrong. Store owners paid protection just to avoid problems. Other dealers gave up territory without fighting. The reputation for violence was so strong that most people surrendered without Petties having to do anything. His $185,000 house in Hickory Hill represented something sinister, not modesty, but camouflage. While living like a regular suburban neighbor, he was ordering executions across state lines. The normal appearance made the violence more terrifying. Your neighbor could be marking you for death while mowing his lawn. Even his own organization lived in fear. One mistake could be fatal. Showing up late to a meeting might be seen as disrespect. Asking too many questions might seem like you're gathering information for the feds. The paranoia was a management tool. Everyone stayed in line because everyone was terrified. By 2002, Memphis had become his kingdom of fear. But kingdoms built on blood always fall. The same violence that protected him also created the witnesses against him. Every murder left behind grieving families who wanted justice. Every execution created potential cooperators who'd rather testify than die. The streets remember Petties not for any charity, but for the terror. Mothers still tell their kids about what happened to Marcus Turner. The restaurant where McNeil died changed owners 3 times, like the violence left a stain. Some corners in Memphis, people still won't talk about those days. Too much blood, too much fear. "2002 started with everything going right, ended with everything going wrong. The murder of Antonio Allen, Petties' own cousin, turned informant, should have been just another body in the game, but it was the domino that started the fall. Federal indictment came down like thunder. Multiple murders, drug trafficking, money laundering. They wanted Petties bad, and they wanted him now. But here's where Petties proved he wasn't just another street dealer. While others would have panicked, gone on the run without thinking, Petties made a calculated decision. Mexico, not hiding in some random spot, but going straight to his partners. The same cartel that supplied him would now protect him. That's not running, that's relocating corporate headquarters. The move was brilliant. U.S. law enforcement could track him to the border, but no further. Mexican authorities weren't exactly eager to help catch someone protected by the Beltran Leyva organization. And Petties didn't just hide. He continued running his empire from Querétaro, 5,000 miles from Memphis, but still in complete control. Think about the technology required. 2002, before smartphones, before encrypted apps everyone uses now. Petties had satellite phones, encrypted communications, coded messages. He ran Memphis from Mexico like a general commanding troops from a bunker. Orders went out, money came in, product kept moving. The Ghost Kingpin was born August 2004. U.S. Marshals added him to their 15 most wanted list. You're talking about a roster with terrorists, serial killers, the absolute worst America was hunting. And there's Petties, the kid from Riverside, keeping company with the most dangerous fugitives alive. Living in Millennial 3rd Subdivision wasn't just comfortable, it was strategic. Gated community, controlled access, cartel security, Mexican military on the payroll, layers of protection that made him untouchable. His kids went to private school, his wife shopped at luxury stores. To the neighbors, he was just another wealthy American expatriate. Nobody asked questions. Money ensures silence. 6 years. Think about that. 6 years running a multi-state drug empire from another country. No hands-on management, no face-to-face meetings, no physical presence, pure remote control. In the corporate world, they'd call him a visionary. In the streets, they called him untouchable. Meanwhile, Operation Petticoat was building. FBI, DEA, U.S. Marshals, even ATF, multi-agency task force with one goal, bring down the Petties organization. They had wiretaps on hundreds of phones, surveillance on dozens of locations, informants at every level. The net was massive, but the big fish was swimming in different waters. Back in Memphis, the machine kept running, but stress was building. Clinton and Martin Lewis were solid, but they weren't Petties. Decisions took longer. Disputes got messier. The discipline that Petties enforced through respect and fear started slipping. Federal pressure was relentless. Every week, another arrest. Low-level dealers getting caught with weight, facing decades, offered deals to flip. Most stayed solid, but some cracked. By 2007, the feds had enough evidence to convict Petties multiple times over, but they still needed him physically. International pressure was building. The U.S. was making Petties a diplomatic issue. Mexican authorities who protected him were being exposed, sanctioned, threatened with extradition themselves. The cost of protecting one American drug dealer was becoming higher than the benefit. January 2008, the word came down. The protection was lifting. Mexican military units not on cartel payroll were being mobilized. The same government that sheltered Petties for 6 years was about to serve him up. In this game, loyalty lasts exactly as long as usefulness. January 10th, 2008, 6 in the morning. The end came with helicopter blades cutting through Querétaro's quiet morning air. Mexican military surrounded the Millennial Third House. Not the local police Petties had paid off. Not the state authorities in the cartel's pocket. Federal military units, clean teams with one mission, extract Craig Petties. No shots fired. That's the detail that matters. After 6 years of running, after all the violence and murder, Petties went quietly. His wife watching, his kids confused. The Ghost Kingpin suddenly flesh and blood, hands behind his back, loaded into a military vehicle. From untouchable to touchable in seconds. But the real betrayal wasn't from Mexico. It was from Memphis. While Petties was getting arrested, his entire organization was collapsing from within. See, the feds hadn't just been watching. They'd been recruiting. Every arrest was an opportunity. Every charge was leverage. 20 years or testify? Most chose testimony. The names of who flipped remained partially sealed, but the damage was total. Childhood friends describing murder plots in detail. Lieutenants explaining the communication systems. Drivers mapping out routes. Money counters revealing stash locations. Each witness another nail in a coffin Petties didn't even know was being built. The extradition happened fast. Mexico wanted Petties gone before the cartel changed its mind or his lawyers found loopholes. Within days, he was on American soil in federal custody, facing a 50-count indictment. The kid from Riverside was finally home, just not how he planned. December 2009, Petties pleaded guilty to 19 charges. No trial, no spectacle, no chance for more witnesses to testify publicly. In exchange, the government dropped 31 charges. Math might seem like he won, but 19 charges, including multiple murders, meant he was never seeing daylight regardless. The cooperation agreement was fascinating. Petties agreed to provide information about cartel operations, drug routes, corruption networks. But the real negotiation was personal. His 3 youngest kids were still in Mexico, essentially orphaned. The deal included safe passage for them back to America. Even facing life in prison, Petties was still protecting his family. August 22, 2013, sentencing day, Judge Samuel H. Mays Jr. presiding. The courtroom was packed, families of victims, former associates, media, everyone waiting to see the final chapter. Judge Mays delivered 9 concurrent life sentences without parole. Concurrent, not consecutive, meaning they run together, not stacked. Technical difference that meant nothing. Life is life. 9 times life is still life. The judge's words were scathing. Called Petties a destroyer of lives, a merchant of death, a cancer on the community. Every fatal incident was detailed. Every family's pain acknowledged. Operation Petticoat's final tally, 40-plus convictions. Clinton and Martin Lewis, life sentences. Clarence Brody, 37 years. Demetrius Fields, 31 years. The entire leadership structure eliminated. Federal Correctional Institution, Memphis, then Metropolitan Correctional Center, New York, then Atlanta. Petties moved through the federal system like a ghost, never staying long enough to establish power, never in one place long enough for enemies to reach him. Even in prison, he remained strategic. Current location, classified. The Bureau of Prisons learned from John Gotti. High-profile inmates stay mobile. But let's talk about what Petties left behind in Memphis. The power vacuum hit immediately. Within months of his arrest, the murder rate spiked 30%. Every corner boy thought they could be the next Kingpin. Every lieutenant thought they deserved the throne. The organized crime became disorganized chaos, blood in the streets, literally. The DEA reported something interesting. No single organization ever reached Petties' scale again. The drug trade fragmented into dozens of smaller crews, each controlling a few blocks instead of 8 states. The Mexican cartels adapted, working with multiple groups instead of one. More complicated, but safer. They learned from the Petties situation. Never put all your product in one pipeline. Memphis changed forever. The Petties era proved the city could be a major hub, attracted federal attention that never left. DEA presence doubled. FBI gang units expanded. The invisible city became visible. Every major dealer since gets compared to Petties. None measure up. He set a bar that became a ceiling. LaBarbie, Petties' cartel connection, got 49 years in 2018. The Beltran-Leyva organization splintered after leadership got killed or arrested. The entire network that enabled Petties' empire collapsed within a decade. Everyone involved either dead or doing decades. The game always ends the same way. The financial aftermath was staggering. Feds seized millions in cash, dozens of properties, hundreds of vehicles. But they estimate they recovered maybe 10% of Petties' total earnings. Tens of millions still unaccounted for, hidden in walls, buried in yards, stashed with relatives who'll never talk. The ghost money of a ghost kingpin. Prison records show Petties works in the library now. The same mind that organized multi-state trafficking now organizes books. He teaches literacy classes to other inmates. Some call it redemption, others call it irony. The man who wrote death sentences now teaches others to write letters home. But here's the truth. Craig Petties won't die forgotten. Every drug documentary mentions him. Every Memphis rapper references him. Every FBI training on cartel connections includes his case. He became immortal the wrong way, a legend built on bodies and broken families, a success story that ends in a concrete cell. His kids are adults now, living under different names, building different lives, carrying their father's legacy like invisible chains. They'll never visit him without cameras watching, never call without recordings, never escape the shadow of what Craig Petties built and what it cost. Let's be clear about what Craig Petties represents. Not glorification, not celebration, but understanding. Understanding how a kid from Riverside becomes an international drug lord. Understanding how Memphis became a cartel hub. Understanding how brilliance without boundaries becomes destruction. The unique elements hit different when you stack them up. First documented, Black American accepted at the Mexican cartel's highest levels. That's not just crime, that's history. 6 years running an 8-state empire from another country. That's not just trafficking, that's innovation. From a $15,000 household to controlling $50 million shipments. That's not just success, that's American capitalism's darkest mirror. But here's what the young cats need to hear. Petties didn't lose because he was weak. He lost because the game is rigged, designed for failure, built for betrayal. Every kingpin thinks they're different. Every empire thinks it's permanent. The cemetery and federal prison are full of dudes who thought they'd be the exception. The mathematics are simple. In this game, you either die or go to prison. There's no retirement package, no gold watch, no peaceful ending. Petties chose prison. 9 life sentences worth. Others choose bullets. Same ending, different delivery method. Memphis still feels the aftermath. The drug trade fragmented but never stopped. The violence continued but less organized. The cartels found new partners but never another Petties. He was unique, irreplaceable, and that's the tragedy. That mind could have built legal empires. Instead, it built a kingdom of cocaine that crumbled into concrete cells. The streets will always create Craig Petties. Different names, same story. Brilliant kids seeing no future in minimum wage. Strategic minds applying themselves to drug distribution instead of legal business. Natural leaders organizing crime instead of communities. The cycle continues because the conditions continue. Craig Petties sits in federal prison today. No location disclosed, no interviews given, teaching literacy to inmates while memories of murder haunt him. The empire gone, the money seized or hidden, the power evaporated, the fear replaced by footnotes in DEA training manuals. This is how the game ends, always, without exception. The only variable is when, not if. How many bodies before yours? How many years before life? How much money before poverty of spirit? The game takes everything and gives nothing lasting. Craig Petties. From Riverside to riches to ruin. From Memphis to Mexico to maximum security. From Kingpin to cautionary tale. The first Black American at the cartel table. The last of his kind to reach that level. Not because others can't, but because his example shows why they shouldn't. Nobody wins. The game always collects. That's not opinion. That's fact. That's history. That's the only truth the streets ever tell. Remember the name, forget the glorification. Learn the lesson, skip the experience. The game has no winners, only survivors serving life. That's the story. That's the truth. That's all.